a.m. It's 5:37 a.m. and the name of this segment this morning is Better Late Than Never. And I had a debate for the last half hour about not coming on. I woke up late. I was out late at a Super Bowl party last night. Did not feel like waking up and coming and talking on international internet television or wherever this goes. But here I am. Does it happen this way at the gym sometimes? Yeah. And am I on time? No. Am I prepared? Not even. But I'm going to talk about something, and I got to come to gym. The pain of not coming to this thing now is greater than blowing it off and not doing it. I had this debate this morning with myself about, look, I don't have to go and do that. I'm not going. And it's like, hey, I'm the station manager. I'm the boss. I'm the owner. I don't have to turn that thing on if I don't want to. And there's the small, still voice was saying to me, Steve, how are you going to feel if you don't turn on? You made a commitment to come to this mental gym and bring it every weekday morning, and how are you going to feel if you wake up tomorrow morning and you have to apologize for not showing up? And at least you'd have to apologize to yourself. And I don't want to have to apologize to myself. So here I am, folks, Stevie the Guide, trying my best to raise my own vibration this morning. And I hope you had a good weekend. And if you're a football fan, I hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. I would say that my being a football fan, the extent that Stevie the Guide is a football fan is about the last 15 minutes of the Super Bowl. That's how much I follow the season. You get me down to the last half of the Super Bowl game, and that's about when I start watching football every year. I got nothing against football. I know it's exciting, but it never has attracted me to sit and watch the players. Usually at Super Bowl time, when somebody asks me something like, hey, who are you rooting for, in the Super Bowl? My normal answer every year is, well, who's playing? I don't even know who's in it. And that's what normally happens. But I was invited to this Super Bowl party last night at this really cool place up north of Fredericksburg, Texas. What's the name of that place? I can't even remember. But it's like this old gas station, and the guy's got it full of motorcycles, and there's a little pool hall there. And for an old Texas sort of honky-tonk, this place is great. But I didn't really care about the game much. I didn't even hardly watch the game until the last bit of it. And the only reason I had a little bit of interest in this Super Bowl game was because the Kansas City Chiefs, I heard that they hadn't been in a Super Bowl in like 50 years. And they're the total underdog, and I like the underdog. I pull for the little guy, and so it looked, if you watch the game in the last quarter of it, it looked like the San Francisco was going to win. It looked like they had the momentum going. It didn't look good, and all of a sudden there was this Hail Mary pass and this critical call where the guy like dove into the end zone and held the football out and just catching a little corner of the end zone, and it was really a big turnaround. And I understand why people like that stuff. I do. I like watching the human drama of athletic competition and the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, and all that. But the truth is, if you put two televisions in front of me, and one of them was the Super Bowl, and the other one was any day out at some of the big waves on this planet where men and women are putting themselves out in front of, 30, 40-foot waves at the Bonsai Pipeline. I watch surfing any old day of the week over any team sport, because it's finding a natural rhythm on these waves that are unpredictable, and waves that have no qualms about just crushing you like a bug and taking your life, and this stuff happens all the time. And so anyway, Super Bowl was neat, but I could have lived without it. And it's just the way I roll, folks. And I come on here not to be a motivational speaker, but to try to raise my own vibration by speaking, live streaming, whatever free-flowing thought authentically comes out of this little pea brain of mine. And in trying to do that every day and trying to come up with something original, hopefully I raise the vibration collectively elsewhere in the world. You never know where when you start talking into one of these babies where it's going to go. But last week I talked a lot about the right brain intuitive. I talked about going to Finca Ambawasi and psychedelic substances. And last week was sort of a celebration of the right brain. And what I was thinking last night was talking about some of the left brain logical people and scenarios, just to sort of bring the balance. Always want to keep the balance between the left and right brain. And the most totally left brain person I could think of was President Teddy Roosevelt. We're in this politically charged environment, and I'm going to do my best to stay away from talking about anything like that because it just creates all sorts of division. And whoever I vote for and whoever you vote for, it's nobody's business, It's our obligation, in my opinion, to vote, and I think you should vote. But who you vote for is none of my business. I don't care, really what you think about it. It's not my business. And but in this politically charged environment, I'm reminded of President Teddy Roosevelt back during, the turn of the 20th century. This guy, the way this guy's mind works, I've read quite a lot on Teddy Roosevelt. I've seen several movies about him. And what a calculating, goal-driven, full of energy type of person that guy was. And when he got his mind set on something, he could actually create an international war in an afternoon. And what I mean by that, I won't go into tremendous detail, but Teddy Roosevelt, he first became the police commissioner of New York. And he didn't work during the day. He'd sleep all day and work all night. And he put on a hat and a top coat in New York, which the police force was totally corrupted. And he'd run around the streets of New York at night, and he'd catch all the policemen drinking and chasing women and, doing illegal stuff, And he single-handedly cleaned up the police department in New York. And then he got appointed as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, of the United States Navy. And there was this air in the United States that Spain should be kicked out of our hemisphere, and most specifically in Cuba and in the Philippine Islands. And but nobody really wanted to declare war on Spain, or at least the government of the United States did not formally want to declare war. But there was this tension, and we were in this climate where it was all, possible that was going to happen. And so one day, the Secretary of the United States Navy told his Assistant Secretary, Teddy Roosevelt, "Hey, I got a headache. I'm going home, at lunchtime, and I won't be back till tomorrow." So that man empowered Teddy Roosevelt to be the acting Secretary of the Navy, and thereby, giving Teddy Roosevelt all of his powers for an afternoon, basically for half a day. And Teddy Roosevelt, the minute that guy left for lunch that day, Teddy Roosevelt basically set up the scenario where we had to go to war. By the time that guy got back the next morning and was drinking his coffee, the Secretary of the United States Navy found out that Teddy Roosevelt all day the day before had been ordering supplies like you cannot believe. Truckloads of coal for the ships to burn, and food, and all sorts of gunpowder and live ammunition, and on, man, millions of dollars worth of stuff, preparing all of our whole fleets and forces for war. And then he cut loose some mad dog admiral over in the Philippines to attack a couple of Spanish ships over there around Manila, I believe. By the time the Secretary of the Navy got back, his comment was, "Geez, Teddy, what? I guess we're going to have to go to war now." And they did. And they declared war on Spain like immediately after that. And then what does Teddy do? Does he stay the Assistant Secretary of the Navy? No. He immediately goes to the government and to the Army and says he wants to command his own regiment. And they said, "No, Teddy, we don't have anybody for you. But if you can find your own people, then you can have a regiment to go down to Cuba." But you'll have to find the guys on your own. And so the government is slowly working to mount a campaign to go down to Cuba. Well, Teddy didn't work slow, okay? Teddy hauled ass over to North Dakota, where he had all these Rough Riders, these, cattlemen and, mountaineer type guys. He gets them all together. He directs everybody to go rally down in San Antonio, Texas at the Minger Hotel. This is way ahead of the government. Now he's got this whole regiment down in San Antonio. He goes down to the local train station. He finds a steam train that is waiting there for a U.S. regiment to come down. Teddy commandeers the train. He hauls ass for Florida in it. That the U.S. regiment got there a couple of days late and cursed him because he had taken their train. Teddy gets all the way to Florida. And he's got newspaper men with him, okay? They're in tow, or people like, I think it was like William Randolph Hearst or somebody like that. Big newspaper people were following this whole campaign. Teddy rushes down to Florida. He gets a hold of a boat. He loads all his people onto the boat. They sail over to Cuba. There was a total snafu when they got there because they found out that they couldn't come to a dock and offload all their horses and mules, all their pack animals. And so somebody had a bright idea to throw them all off the boat, that they could swim to shore. It was only a few hundred yards. Well, the animals didn't. They wound up panicked. They swam around the boat and a bunch of them drowned. So now you've got a cavalry in Cuba that's on foot, and they had to walk through the jungle for miles, and they had all kinds of problems and malaria, and they ran out of tobacco, which is a terrible deal. But anyway, they make it all the way to where the Spanish are, and Teddy, makes his famous charge up San Juan Hill, and a bunch of people got killed. And the next thing you know, they've turned one artillery battery against the main Spanish battery, and they go up there and beat them, okay, in an afternoon, or a few days to get there and everything. Before the American forces even got there, it's coming out in the newspaper that Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders have now conquered the Spanish, and there's these famous pictures of Teddy with his men, standing on San Juan Hill. It all happened in just a few days, and he's international news. He's on the front page of every paper in the world, and he easily gets, nominated. Well, he ran for president, and he gathered so much support so quickly that he was fighting for the main contender, McKinley, President McKinley. They were in a race together, and so they brokered this deal where Teddy would become the vice president. All right, because none of these big corporate guys wanted Teddy to be the president of the United States. They didn't like him at all, and so he became the vice president, and they basically, took away all his power. The vice president is like nobody. Now, after the inauguration of President McKinley, they told Teddy Roosevelt, the vice president, okay, now get out of here. We'll call you if we need you. And he was effectively cut off from any power. But then President McKinley got shot, and Teddy Roosevelt became the president. And the rest is, as they say, sort of history. But I mean, what a left-brain, logical, goal-oriented guy that will stop at nothing to accomplish what he wanted. And the next thing, once he became president, one of the things that he wanted was to complete the engineering project that the French had started down in Panama, at the Isthmus of Panama, which was then part of Colombia. He wanted to complete that canal and be the guy that made that happen. And the only problem is that he wanted to have the Panama Canal Zone as his own. He tried to buy the Isthmus of Panama from the Colombians, but they wanted about as much as we had just paid for Alaska or something. No, that's a different story. Alaska was later. But anyway, Teddy wanted the Isthmus of Panama for the United States. And when the Colombians wouldn't take the price he offered, he sent some people down to Panama and said, hey, you guys, you want to start your own country? And they said, yeah, sure. And so the U.S., it was the quickest the U.S. had recognized a brand new nation. And in Colombia, we basically stole Panama from the Colombians so Teddy could have his canal. And is this right or very neighborly? No, probably not. It's not. But did Teddy care about any of that? He was total left brain logical. We're going to have that canal, and we'll do anything to get it. So what's my point with this whole Teddy Roosevelt, Uncle Remus tale? Well, the left brain is there for a good reason. It takes what visions come to you, and then it is able to carry them out. And so the balance between the two. But when they become imbalanced, and you got this total left brain dominant, you're willing to do anything to make your vision happen. And sometimes the pendulum swings way out of balance. And so, but I always admired Teddy Roosevelt. He got a lot of stuff done. He moved quicker than your average person, your average politician, your average president. Teddy Roosevelt accomplished many good things, but some say he was just so hard to deal with, and he wanted what he wanted, and that's all there was to it. And so, balance in all things. He came to mind as a counterweight to the psychedelic experience. I think Teddy might have been a very different man if he had tried ayahuasca. But anyway, that's about all I got for today. Woke up late, didn't want to come, didn't have any plan at all, and are you lucky I showed up? No, probably not. But here I am trying to work my mental gym and raise the vibration of this planet. And what I truly believe, ladies and gentlemen, it's just my lone voice talking in the wind here. But it is my true and heartfelt belief that if we can work on all these ways to bring balance to our brain, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I've talked about before, he talks in very plain and scientific terms about relaxing your mind into a state of meditation. And how important that is. And did I meditate this morning before I came on? No, sure didn't. I woke up just barely in time to pull myself together to give a half an hour to this effort. And I just because I talk about meditation and that it's good for people doesn't mean I do it all the time either. I'm singing to my own choir. It's so important to try to settle yourself down. If you don't do it first thing in the morning, doesn't mean you can't do it at any old time during the day. And ordering yourself to sit still and not listening to your body when it says, I want my coffee and I want to talk on the internet and I want to, turn on my, my chattering little monkey mind. It is such a healthy thing to allow your mind to be still. Just be still and know. And there's something in this silent knowing. There's something very important about shutting off your talking, whether you're verbally talking or whether you're mentally talking. There's something wonderful and something so very valuable about turning that off, shutting it down. Going out of your mind is not a bad thing. Now, taken to extremes like anything, I'm sure it is, but your mind being constantly in control all the time, it makes no room for the right brain intuitive, that strong feminine energy, that strong ability to look at a broader band of information, which comes to people. And all the a lot of the famous inventors, scientists, visionaries, they so right back to Jesus. They so often talk about the importance of just sitting in silence and allowing one's mind to listen rather than to talk. And for me, who chatters all the time, this is such a hard thing to do. But it's something worth practicing, at least for me, to meditate, to order my body to sit still and my mind to sit still and just pay attention to my breathing. And if you can do that, it's really helpful. And I truly believe when we're able to do that, it raises the collective vibration. There's a cymatic effect, I call it, when the collective vibration starts to create a new consciousness in human beings. And I believe that's what is happening. I believe that's what they refer to when they talk about the second coming of Christ. I believe they're talking about the second coming of a Christ consciousness. That helps us all to become much more aware of how to love our neighbors and love our world, love ourselves, and make things a lot better. So anyway, that's all I got for you today. I love you so very much, and I'm lucky I made it here at all, but I made it. I may have come kicking and screaming, but I made it. And so it's 6 o'clock. I love you. Go out and make it a great day. If you stumble and fall, try to dust yourself off and don't beat yourself up about it. I love you, and